Hi everybody, this is Dr. Bob Whipple. I'd like to talk to you right now about project number 2 or paper number 2. As you've seen from reading the assignment for paper number 2, your job is to write a review. Writing a review with specific criteria, and the target of your review is going to be the article Snowfall that is linked on your syllabus. That's also linked on the assignment for project number 2. A review in this case is not like a movie review. This kind of short movie reviews you might read in a newspaper or online on Fandango or movietickets.com or any of the other resources that you might look at to find a review. This kind of review is an extended review. What you're doing actually is engaging in a very ancient kind of writing tactic called analysis. You are taking something apart and looking at its constituent parts, seeing how it works, and then making value judgments about how well those things work together. Okay, so with your film review, with your article review, sometimes I teach this paper with movies, and sometimes I teach this paper with books, and sometimes with this particular article. Anyway, so you're going to work with the article, and with this article, what I want you to do is look at its constituent parts, take it apart, and examine or make value judgments about each of those parts. Now, this is going to be a very structured paper, and it's very important that you learn and understand the structure that this paper needs to take. This is going to be a more traditional paper. You're going to be turning it in probably in a Microsoft Word document. And by the way, I would much prefer Microsoft Word rather than Pages. Documents written in Pages on the Mac are very difficult for me to download and convert so that I can read them. Anyway, I said we're making value judgments, and what I mean by that is that you are making a judgment about the goodness or not so goodness of something. We make value judgments every day of our lives, every minute of our lives. For example, when we get up in the morning and get dressed, we make value judgments about what clothes look good on us and what don't, what clothes look good together and what don't. When we go to a restaurant and eat, we make value judgments while we're eating and as soon as we've eaten about whether the food is good, whether that particular dish is good, whether the ambiance of the restaurant is nice, whether it's a nice place, whether it's too loud, whether there are too many TVs. We make value judgments about our surroundings and what we consume, what we use, what we do, what other people do in front of us and around us. We do this all the time. Okay, so the basic concept of making a value judgment should not be foreign to you. Think about the things that make up this article. Okay. Let me give you an example from film, and then we'll move to the article. If you're making, when the Academy Awards are coming up in a few weeks, once we've seen a movie, we say, oh, it was really good. I really like the X, the Y, the Z, the blah, the blah, the blah. Okay, these X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah things are the constituent parts of the movie that we like. For example, we might say we like the acting. Or we might say we like the characterization or the casting. We might say we like the costumes. For example, I just saw Guardians of the Galaxy last week, and I thought the costumes were hilarious. I thought they were great. We might like the special effects. Again, sci-fi movies are pretty good for that. We might like the theme of the movie. We might like the sort of message of the movie. You're probably familiar with looking for themes in a movie from your high school and literature classes. We might say we like the costume, special effects. You might say you like the cinematography. Okay, cinematography is how the camera works, how pullbacks, pans, fades, how the camera does what it does to make the movie have some of the effects that it has. Okay, so those are several criteria that you can use to judge, upon which you can judge a film. What are the criteria? What are the separate parts of the article Snowfall that you can look at? I'm not going to. It's kind of your job in this paper to come up with your specific criteria. By the way, I'm using the word criteria and criterion, and I need to talk about that a little bit. It's your job to come up with a specific criteria or separable constituent parts yourself. But I will suggest, for example, there are some kind of special effects. There is certainly the tone. There's the writing itself. There's obviously a lot of web effects. Think about, if you would brainstorm and come up with about 5 or 6 different effects, you'll have a database or a list of different effects or different constituent parts that you can then choose for the three required criteria for paper number 2. Let me talk a little bit about the concept of criteria. First of all, the word criteria is a word that comes from Greek, okay, ancient Greek. And it's kind of weird because criteria with an A on the end, that is the plural, okay? If you're talking about a single criterion, it's criterion, C-R-I-T-E-R-I-O-N, okay? I'm going to be looking very carefully when you write your paper at the correct use of criteria and criterion. I know it's a little different than forming plurals in English, but now that it's been explained to you, I expect you to be able to handle that. Okay? Anyway, so with each criterion, I'd like you to proceed in the following manner. With each section, first of all, I'd like you to introduce your value judgment. Tell us what your value judgment is. So, for example, in a film, you might say, well, with Guardians of the Galaxy, I thought the soundtrack was awesome. Okay, maybe a little informal, but you get the idea. Okay, so your criterion is the soundtrack, the music being played behind the action in the film. Okay, so what do you want to say about that? Take it from me, nobody is going to simply believe your assertion, believe your judgment about something simply because you make a single statement about it. You have to prove it to people. Humans are picky creatures. We want things explained to us. We wanted you to give it. We want examples, and we want to know why. And this is the paper for this class is going to really get you into the concept of telling why, explaining, and giving examples. Okay, so after you've made your value judgment in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 sentences, it doesn't have to be one sentence. You can go on a little bit and talk about how you enjoyed it. Then you need to provide an example. You need to give a clip or a scene, narrate it from the film. So tell us why the soundtrack is, for example, awesome. Okay, so we'd probably be talking about a particular song. Okay, so tell us about that song. Tell us what the character is doing while the song is playing. Tell us what the character, how the character feels or responds to the music. Tell us how the character, how the music makes you feel in reference to what the character is doing. There's a lot of talking you can do about this. Okay, now let's switch to the paper that you're writing right now. Let's say that you choose the tone of the article, the author's tone. And there's a lot of things you can say about the tone of the article. That you don't have to use this is just an example. Okay? One of the things you can talk about is the way the author chooses his or her words, in this case, his. Okay? So I would expect you to have more than one, at least 2, maybe 2 or 3 different specific quotations from the film that are examples of what you like or what you dislike. I mean, it's your value judgment from the film. Okay? Now, is that it? No. Simply give an example is still not sufficient. Examples are kind of like chocolate chips. They're really great by themselves, but they need the whole cookie to make a wonderful, beautiful, delicious experience. Okay? So what you need to do is provide more of the cookie. So what I'm asking you to do is you've made your value judgment, you've offered your value judgment, you've provided a nice full example. Now you need to tell us the why. You need to tell us why this example proves what you say it proves. Okay? You give us an example of a sentence that has a really sort of bad, unpleasant tone. Well, why is it unpleasant? How is it unpleasant? What specific words make it unpleasant? You see how I'm using the words why, how, where, when a lot? Those are the five, who, where, why, when, how, and what. Those 5 journalistic questions. Those are the questions you need to ask about every one of your examples that you use to say how they cause the effect that how for example this sentence or this quotation has the effect on you that it does, either to make a good impression or a not so good impression. Okay, so you've offered your value judgment, you've given your example, you've provided explanation of why it proves what you say it proves. Then it's time for you to move on to your next example. As I said, you need more than one example in each of your criterion sections. Okay, so for tone, you need 1 or 2 or maybe 3. I mean, go for as many examples as you can. There's no such thing as too much detail in a paper like this. People really like to just assume that that people who are going to read your paper are going to be really enjoying everything you write. Don't worry about it being too long. It may take some time, it may feel a little tedious, but I guarantee you the effort that you spend is going to be worth it. Okay? All right. So you've offered your value judgment, you've given your example, you've provided the explanation of why the example proves what you say it proves. You've done this 2 or 3 times, then it's time to move on to your next criterion section. So that's what I expect in each criterion section. Okay? Remember that quotations, if it's something that somebody said, or it's a quotation from the book, it needs to be in quotation marks. Since we're working with the Snowfall article that everybody's reading, you don't need to provide, since we're only working with one article, you're not doing external or outside research, then you do not need to put the page number or the article name in parentheses at the end of the sentence. You also do not need a bibliography, since we're all working with the same text. Okay? All right. Those are the basic steps for the project number 2. Please try to think out of the box in terms of the constituent parts of the film that you're working on, that you're examining. Be sure to look at both the traditional text and the multimedia elements. Look for ways of viewing and understanding the text that may be beyond the ordinary. That's going to help you looking at this with a fresh and quizzical and inquisitive eye. Is going to really help you make nice, original, interesting statements about it once you start writing. Okay? As you all know my email address, you all know my cell number to text me, you all know my office phone, you all know that when I have office hours, I will be happy. We've got a couple of weeks before the draft of this is due, so I will be happy to work with you and talk with you about this paper at any time you would like. Okay? Thanks a lot. Hope you have a great rest of the week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.